Okay, we're going to do number 1 from the homework, in case you were having trouble with it. Directions say each number written in scientific notation. So it's a yes or no, and if not, write it in scientific notation. The rule for scientific notation is that the first number has to be in between 1 and 10, like we did in class. This is 55, so this is not in scientific notation. So you put a no, not in scientific notation. In order for this to be in scientific notation, this first number has to be between 1 and 10. If there's a decimal at the end of the number, 55, you would have to make this number smaller by moving the decimal to the left. If you move this decimal to the left, that's at the end, once, you made the number smaller. So if you put smaller on that side, to compensate for making that smaller, you have to make this exponent bigger or larger by the same amount of exponents that you moved, the same amount that you moved this decimal. You moved this decimal once over to the left, you made it smaller by moving it once. You have to make this bigger by 1. So your final answer would be 5.5 times 10, and instead of 4, you made that number smaller over here by 1. You have to make this bigger by 1. 4 plus 1, 5. And that is in scientific notation now. Number 2 is not a number between 1 and 10, so it's 0.9. So you do have to move this decimal. And if you move this decimal over 1 to the right now, it becomes 9. And that's a number that is good for scientific notation, between 1 and 10. So you made this number bigger by 1 because you moved it only once. So I'm going to put big. All right. So that means this exponent, if you made that bigger, you have to make this exponent smaller. And by the same amount you moved the decimal over. So if you made this bigger by 1, you have to make this smaller by 1. So if it's 10 times negative 2, what's a number that's smaller than or less than negative 2 by only 1? It would be negative 3. Remember, if you said that this was negative 1, you actually made the number larger. All right, so this would be scientific notation. 9 times 10 to the negative third, that is scientific notation. Number 3, I want you to take a look at this and ask yourself, remember, in scientific notation, this first number has to be between 1 and 10. If it's been between 1 and 10, this first number, then it is in scientific notation. If it is not in between 1 and 10, then it's not in scientific notation. So you can answer this one on your own, I think. To go on to number 4, to write each one of these numbers in scientific notation, remember, I'm going to do number 5. Number 5, write that in scientific notation. The decimal, remember, is at the end of the number. Make the loops and count them over and travel over with the decimal and stop when you think you have a number between 1 and 10. And right there is your number. So you write that number down, 6.3, you created that number. It is in between 1 and 10. And it's times 10 always to a base of 10, scientific notation. And the exponent is how many times you move the decimal over. If this is a large number, and it is a large number, remember, it has to be a positive exponent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces over. It's a positive 6 because, again, you're starting every large number right here. We're going to say has a positive exponent. This is it, 6.3 times 10 to the sixth. To do one on the smaller side, a small number, number 6, I want you to be able to look at this number and say, all right, this is going to be a negative exponent. It's a very small number, and it's going to be a negative exponent. This one has a decimal. It's right here. All right, this one had the decimal, but you didn't see it because it's at the end of the number always. But this one has the decimal, and again, the same rule applies. You have to move that decimal and travel with the decimal over to where you think you could stop it, that you are creating a number between 1 and 10. If you stop right there, it's 3.25. That's between 1 and 10. If you go to the end of the number, which a lot of people make that mistake, you made 325. All right, so you don't want to do that. You stop at where you think the number that you create is between 1 and 10, and that's 3.25. And it's times 10. And remember, this is a small number, so it is going to be a negative exponent, definitely. All right, so how many times did you remove? 1, 2, 3. It's negative 3. And you can do number 4 and number 7 on your own. To move on to, I'll do 2 of these with you. Write each number in standard notation from scientific notation. You write down the number first, right here. You take this number, just write it down, copy it down, and then you are going to move the decimal. Remember, positive exponent, large number. The 5 has a decimal right at the end like that. You're moving the decimal 2 places over to the right because, again, with the positive exponent, it's just like you're creating a larger number. This is a large number to begin with. 5, move it over 2 places to the right, it becomes 500. Let me do one negative with you, and I'll do this one. Again, we're going to write with the negative exponents. You know you're going to go to the left because you have to make this number here a smaller number. It's negative 1, so that means it's going to be a small number. So I'm going to write down 8.97, and I know that I have to move to make this number smaller. I'm moving to the left. I'm going to go 1 to the left because the exponent tells me only once that I'm going to move, and that's where my decimal is going to be. Decimal started out as 8.97. It's going to go to the left, and now the answer is 0.897. And that is your answer. So that is it. You could do number 11 and 9 on your own. I think you'll be okay with that, and that ends the video.